It's a cycle. It goes up, it comes down. It's a wheel. It keeps revolving around and around. It's going to come back. So what does that mean? That means make a good plan and then work the plan. So the most important thing to get across to your people listening to this podcast, especially the younger people, develop a good plan and just keep working the plan.
Today's guest is Doug Bathurst, a veteran of the design build world with deep expertise in complex structural systems and value engineering. But this conversation goes far beyond specs and materials. Doug brings a mindset that every business owner can learn from. In this episode, we talk about earning trust in long sales cycles, the role of humility in client relationships, and how to stand out in industries where margins are tight and competition is fierce. In today's episode, it comes down to this: relationships close deals. Your reputation just gets you in the room. Welcome to the Marketer Podcast. Really happy to have you guys join us today. If you've been listening to my show at all, you know that the Marketer is kind of as it describes. It's all about marketing. But recently, I've had a lot of people reach out to me saying, hey, I want to hear some more sales-oriented stuff. Marketing and sales kind of go hand in hand. Sometimes there are silos within the business where they don't really cross over too well, or communication can be difficult. But I'm now incorporating a little bit of sales into it. So this is my first episode where we're going to be bringing some sales discussion into the program. And I'm really excited to have Doug Bathurst with us today. And the reason I've selected Doug to come on the show is he has a unique approach to his sales methodology. It's all relationship oriented, which is not unique, if you would. Today, we're going to be talking about consultative sales. When I was talking to Doug about putting this show together, one of the things that we had mentioned was how you go about your consultative sales process in down markets. And as of the recording of this show, just the day before, we had a huge dive in the stock market. Everything just, the bottom fell out. So, we're in a time now where the economy is very uncertain, and people are starting to cinch up the wallets, if you would. Sales processes are extending. And how do you deal with that? If you're in sales, even in marketing, how do you now respond to markets that are changing on you very quickly, and not for the better sometimes? So, Doug, welcome to the show. It's really a pleasure to have you on today.
Thank you, Monte. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I want to quick start, Doug, by just sharing your concept of consultative sales. Can you walk me through that a little bit? Give me a definition.
The nice thing about it is consultative sales is kind of recognized in the industry, and the definition is effectively your need-based selling. A sales approach where reps act more like advisors, not salespeople, is the Wikipedia kind of version of what the definition is. What makes consultative sales a little bit different is as the salesperson, you need to become an expert in a certain specific portion of whatever market you're working in. For mine, it happens to be construction. I'm kind of an expert in mid-rise construction, specifically for structural floor systems. So you deal a lot with the same people over and over again, whether it's the design teams, architects, engineers, or even the developers and the GCs. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to find the projects or the people that need your products. And then you kind of look at each individual project and figure out what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, help them get through the process, whether it's design, code requirements, all those various things that go into the stuff that doesn't really get on the cover of a magazine, but the architects and engineers need to kind of be aware of and handle. So that's kind of where the consultative sales process in my world starts. In general, it's you have to be an expert in something and you're solving people's problems. Like when I interview and various times that it has happened, I tell people I like solving the puzzle. It's you're meeting with people, you're meeting with groups. It's okay, what's the puzzle? And doesn't matter what product or process you're selling, it's in consultative sales, you're trying to solve the puzzle. It's like, okay, we're trying to get from A, we're trying to end up at D. What are steps B and C going to entail? How do we go about getting that and creating what the vision is for the end user, the client? So that's the quick down and dirty on it.
I appreciate it. Let's back up a little touch. So walk me through how does leads, so to speak, come your way? I know you're in a very kind of niche business, if you would. Is marketing providing you with leads, either from a website or however else they're producing it? Are you responsible then for going out and uncovering leads? What's the typical process for you?
So probably about 85 to 90% of my leads are self-generated by relationships that I know. Either it's from an existing architect or engineer, existing GC or owner. Sometimes it's by another sub who is, meeting with one of those same types of people. And again, it's, oh, I got this project. Oh, here's my problem. How are we going to solve it? Some of them know me. Other ones where it's brought in by somebody else who's a sub goes, oh no, this is how we can solve this. And they bring me on board. Specifically today, I had a person who does the vertical walls that I bear on top of reach out to me and he goes, hey, I'm going to put you in touch with a very specific customer. They've got a 14-story we want to do. They can't do it with what they thought they were going to do because of the height and the loading. You need to bring them on board and get them get them on board with you using you so that we can both get the project. That's just an example of today. A lot of my other ones I get designed in by architects or engineers because they look at the project, they know how my product fits and solves the issue. It's then up to me to make sure that the owner and the GC and the installers know what's going on and how to best utilize my product, make sure the design gets done correctly, and then solve the other little parts and pieces such as noise ratings, sound ratings, vibration, fire ratings, all that other fun stuff that's in my world. As far as your clients, your base, Monte, from a marketing standpoint, yes, I do have a marketing department. Yes, I do rely on a website that does have some leads. So I do have like some engineers that come into me through there or some architects. We do advertising on LinkedIn and various magazines. We do trade shows and that kind of stuff. At the end of the day, every marketing campaign is still the same thing. There's the five W's and the H: who, what, when, where, why, how. And then as far as the sales process, everybody's sales process is more or less somewhere between 5 and 12 steps. Typically for consultative sales, a lot of them are going to be 7 to 8 steps. And marketing is the first one. Like, how do you touch the person the first time? How do you bring them into your orbit? So there is some back and forth. I actually, because my division is kind of the red-haired stepchild. That's kind of one of the specialties I've done is when I've worked for companies as big as Volcraft, Nucor, and had to do the same thing. Yes, there's a huge marketing department, but I need to get them to focus on my specific sub product. So I do a lot of that and have done a lot of that in my career. And it's okay, great, thanks. I know you can make great flyers. Yeah, I know you can do great email campaigns. We're going to do trade shows, but it's a matter of picking the right trade show, making sure we have the right materials, getting the right materials out there, and kind of focusing on who we want as a marketing department to get into our orbit so that I can then do my thing, which is the sales side of it.
So when we're dealing with consultative sales, Doug, a lot of that word implies that it takes a lot of education. If you're consulting on something, right, you're helping somebody understand their need. You're helping them understand their problem. So does that really elongate your sales process if it's consultative? Or
so So yes, the short answer is yes. Consultative sales process is a longer sales process, especially for the initial project or three with a customer. There are projects I've been working on for 4, 5, 6 years. There are other projects where it's like, okay, the first project took me 3, 4 years to get through the design process to get everybody on board. But the next three projects were, oh, we're just doing the same thing. It's almost the same product. It's almost the same project. We just need to tweak a couple of things. So that gets a little faster, but that's still a year process from, okay, we're actually going to move forward with it, negotiating the project, getting it priced up, making sure we've dotted the I's and crossed the T's, as they say.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not a commodity type product where Monte, you're like, oh, I'm going to build a building. Let me just go out and buy a bunch of studs. It's not like I'm building a garage where I need a bunch of 2x4s and away we go.
Yeah.
And you just run down to the Home Depot or you call up the local distributor and, 2 days later, there's a pallet dropped off in your yard. It's a lot more design. It's a lot more back and forth. It's a lot more answering questions, asking the right questions, and getting everybody to the right point before you even get to doing drawings that then lead to production. So yes, in the short version, yes, it's a longer sales process.
So you could have up to a year, I'm hearing, in your sales process before you're closing deals. So walk me through, how do you measure success in that? Because I'm assuming you're not working with like 100 sales a year or anything. You're probably talking about higher price deals. How do you move people along that journey to get it to close?
Well, first of all, you have to have a company that believes in patience that you work for and work with, and then it really boils down to, like any good marketing campaign, you have to set up your sales process, your marketing and sales pipeline, and it just has to be pretty broad and deep, and then they fall in place. I've never worried about, once you get past the first year with a new company, so to speak, and once you get the pipeline full, it's just a matter of, okay, where are we? How many times have you touched this project? How many times? And it's all project driven. It's like, all right, when's the next one? When's the next step? What is the next step? And you're kind of giving that back to the powers that be, accounting or whoever it might be. And that's why I say you have to have an understanding company that goes, all right, I know this is a 3-year process. I know there is all kinds of things that we're going to make this project slip. And then you try to do the best you can as far as giving projections so that the company can buy the right materials so that when it finally does go, they're not scrambling around trying to buy the right materials to make the product that we're going to ship. So once you kind of get a comfort level with the company and then with your customers, you're able to understand, like, okay, I know I'm going to do $3 million next year. And it's going to be spread out, from Q2, beginning of Q2 to mostly the end of Q3, and anything else that comes in beyond that, just counted as extra gravy. And then the company's able to plan on that. And you're able to kind of figure out what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. And yeah, we do have a little bit higher profit, but there's also a lot more overhead because we have engineers looking at it. We have drafters looking at it. It's not just falling in our lap and we're, picking up the box of Kleenex and, dropping it off to the Amazon. So there's a lot of back and forth. So you do have to, figure out what's going on. This year has been tough. One of the first things we talked about was the Survive the 25. I started hearing that September of 23. And it was just because interest rates were going up, costs were going up, both labor and materials. Shipping was a nightmare. Trying to get things approved was brutal. And it was the developers, who are the ultimate customers, have to decide, am I going to put my money in this and build a building and bring it on board? And every market's a little bit different. So you're coming out of COVID, you're coming out of New York saturated, and people are moving out of New York. Philadelphia was almost the opposite situation. They had a tax abatement program that was being phased out. So everybody was trying to get their buildings built. And now people didn't want to start this year because 10,000 units are coming on board in 1 year. And it's just a matter of, okay, let's slow play it and let the absorption happen before I get my product on site. So it's everything from financing to approvals to absorption are all mixed into that bag of whether or not the project's going to go forward. And financing does not help because you're trying to find financing. And as soon as you bring in a new financing partner, it's almost like you're starting over again of what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, what's the timing going to be.
So this episode is called Survive to 2025. We came up with that when we were talking about what we're going to do on the show. And, isn't it amazing, by the way, that it's 2024, we're more than halfway through 2024 right now, kind of speeding towards 25, and we're still saying, we're coming out of COVID.
It's just amazing.
Which,
it just is amazing.
That one event set everything back so far that here, almost 5 years later, we're still saying we're coming out of 2025. I'm sorry, we're coming out of COVID. So here we are. We're coming out of COVID. We're coming up on an election time, which always produces volatility in our markets, no matter what happens. But especially now, especially this year, the markets just crashed as evidence, of that volatility. Who knows what's to come? When you're dealing with a long sales cycle, and people are now going, okay, we're going to have to back off this project, or we're going to have to wait and see what happens. That's going to extend you. Yes, I heard you say you've got to have a business that understands these things, that's going to be behind you. How do you deal with the emotions of that, though? When do you hit the panic button? How do you avoid hitting the panic button?
So this goes back to experience and a good game plan. So first of all, experience. This is not my first downturn. I've been in, besides construction, I've been in some other industries that, you have, Y2K, and then everything fell apart. 2008, financing and everything, and various other things that have happened. And it's just like, okay, you learn from it. I've been fortunate to have some good mentors in my years that have helped me learn from their experience of it's a cycle. It goes up, it comes down, it's a wheel. It keeps revolving around and around. It's going to come back. So what does that mean? That means make a good plan and then work the plan. I've had some companies that didn't understand that, and they would try to chase, oh, this is going really well, let's everything good. It's like they abandon what they just spent, months or a year developing. And when you do that, you kind of lose your traction. So the most important thing to get across to your people listening to this podcast, especially the younger people, develop a good plan. Find somebody that's been around the block, develop a good plan, and just keep working the plan. As long as you're putting that pipeline, making it bigger and bigger and keeping it full, it will come. It will eventually pop up. This year was a rough year. When my team sat down and decided, hey, we need to put a budget together for next year, we said we're not going to sell as much as we did this past year, because 2023 was actually a great year. And we had a couple of big projects, and we knew they were going to kind of keep just going through, but they were going to tail off. They're finishing up about now, Q3. And so we told the company, hey, look, we're going to be down. We're going to be down 15% from last year. We're not going to book as much business. We're not going to ship as much. So you have to be aware that's what we're planning on, and that's what we're expecting. They were yelling at us all through October. What do you mean? What do you mean? Because my company's year end is the end of November, so they wanted it locked in by December 1st. And we're like, we're telling you, this is the way the market's going. This is the market conditions. Don't bring in a lot of stock. For us, it's coil. A lot right now, it's really expensive. Hold off. Let's wait for it to come down. We're not going to need as much of it. We know we are going to need this. And it was a good number. Don't get me wrong. It's not like we're in the soup line. But Everybody else was like, no, we're going to 10% growth. No, we're good to go. Come April, we were the only division that was on target. Everybody else was severely behind.
Wow.
And it's like, it's kind of like we know what we're talking about. We're running the program and we're meeting all our goals and we're meeting our financial obligations to the stakeholders that we work with. And that's really from a sales standpoint, you have to tell them the good and you have to tell them the bad. So if you have a good program and you have a good plan that you're working, you can handle the slippages because it's like, okay, I know I have $8 million I'm designed in on that could come at any point in time, but it's not going to start shipping, for 2-3 months. So we have time to catch up if we need to. And on a regular basis, it's what's coming, what's not coming. This is what we're planning on. Is there anything extra you see? Are there any big projects? What I've noticed in my career, especially in the structural side of construction, you will have a bump right around Easter and right around Labor Day. It's like, depending on your early Easter, it's like, oh, winter's breaking, because I work in the Northeast for the most part.
Yeah.
Winter's breaking. Oh, crap. We need to actually start pushing dirt and get things built. The other pop is the end of summer happens, Labor Day, kids start going back to school, and everybody goes, oh, crap, winter's coming. I need to get this project going. So you're going to see a bunch of that. Unfortunately, this year, I'm seeing we're going to try to get things locked in now here, August, September, October, for March and April. So that's kind of where I am now. So the Survive the 25 is working. I have quite a few projects that we're looking to kind of wrap up in the next 30, 60 days, but they're not going to start shipping. They're not going to start being on site until April. So it is what it is, but at least I'll know where it is.
Honestly, Doug, that's some really tremendous insight. That a lot of times in businesses, you have leadership that says, no, we have to achieve a 5% growth, a 10% growth, a 20% growth year over year. And it's all about what do you need to do to hit your numbers, so to speak. And what I'm hearing you say is that leadership is very heavily dependent on you, who is in the market every day, all day, understanding what's happening in the market, looking at trends, looking at the news and such, and seeing what's happening so that you can guide leadership into what the business is going to do. And I think that's a critical component of it, because as you're putting numbers together, and I've worked with a number of different clients, who they set expectations so high on the revenue that they're going to bring in that if you look at the history of the business over the past 5 years, their revenue didn't, increase or decrease, didn't fluctuate all that much. It was more about, we've now just decided somewhat arbitrarily, we want to, instead of a 3% growth, we want a 13% growth. Right. And so, it's kind of laughable, but it happens all the time. How have you gotten into the position to where leadership comes to you and they're saying, Doug, talk to us about the market. Talk to us why we're not going to achieve these numbers and what we need to do to adjust for it.
But I'm pretty fortunate in they kind of respect what I do. Again, I referenced we're a little bit of a unique product in our company's product mix. So we're a specialty product. We're a design product. It's a lot more touching. It's not commodity. We're not out there just pushing as many tons as we can, trying to get it out the door, chasing every job. We're designed in so we have a much better feel of when things are going to go. We know exactly who's designing with us. We have a better handle on exactly where our particular subsection of the market is. And fortunately, we've earned the trust of management. Accountants and lawyers, you always got to earn their trust.
Yeah.
And they don't believe anything the sales guys say because they're always worried we're sandbagging.
Yeah.
But it's a two-sided coin. It's my income is really based upon, how much I sell. I have what I call skin in the game. The way I want it, my comp plan to be set up is I don't want a huge salary. So that way, when there is a downturn, they're not looking to cut cut me because, I'm not a big drain on the bank account.
Right.
Conversely, when I sell a lot of product for them at a good margin, I make more money. So I make money, they make money. Everybody's happy, right? That's why we're all in business. So they know I have skin in the game, just like they do, and that the upper level management understands that I'm not sandbagging them. I'm not making anything more or anything less unless it actually gets sold at a good margin. And for me to tell them, yeah, I know I'm not going to bring in as much money, and I know I'm not going to make as much money as I did the year before. I'm not asking for you for anything else. I'm just telling you what the situation is. And the company's been around for a long time, and they're family owned business, and they know ups and downs happen. And I think they kind of appreciated that they push back. That's how companies are. I want my 5%. And it's like, no, you're not going to get it. And this is why. And, you explain the market. And as long as you come with information and a plan for how you're going to do what needs to be done, they can understand it and appreciate it and take that information and plug it into their system and know what they can and can't do. I don't want to tell them I'm not going to, increase sales or sales are going to go down and then have them not fill the attrition of somebody that retires. If I know I'm going to have a 20% sales increase, I'm going to tell you I have a 20% sales increase. That way they can plan the purchase of the products. That way they can plan the shutdowns for the factory. Everything that goes into manufacturing, they have to know what's right and what's wrong so that they can adjust all the other divisions appropriately. And unfortunately, with the marketing people, it's also like, okay, we have a big budget for you this year. Not so big this next year, or it's going back up.
That is the life of the marketing department. That is absolutely the
truth. Exactly. So, as from a sales standpoint, I've always looked at it as I take ownership of I need to do X to cover my guys. That's my guys in the plant, my estimator, my detailers, my portion of the marketing budget. I've worked for a number of small companies in my career, and it was literally like, okay, this is your nut, this is the company thing, and this is when we all start making more money. And since I've been the marketing guy for some of the small companies, plus the sales guy, I get where all that comes from.
Yeah.
And everybody's got bills to pay.
Yeah.
Except for the federal government.
Yeah.
Everybody's got bills to pay. You can't run a deficit. You have to know what you're bringing in and then budget appropriately and then what you're going to be able to give out. It's the same thing for a company as it is for a family. What's coming in? What do I want to do with it? How do I allocate it so that I reach the goals that I want to reach? Whatever those goals may be. Like I tell my customers, I can't fix something if I don't know what's going right and what's going wrong. And that's also what I give to the company because, like you said, I'm the one that's out in the field talking to the customers, knowing what's going on in my niche of the market, in my niche of their overall business. It's my responsibility to tell them sometimes it's great news, sometimes it's not so good news, but to tell them the truth at all times. So, and that's the other big thing. Always try to figure out what's the truth and pass the truth along. And then everything will fall from there.
So from a consultative standpoint, you take a very heavy role in customer satisfaction and making sure that the customer is happy throughout the project, if you would, which I think is another delineator in this type of sales process where you're selling it, but you're also walking the client through it from start to finish. Is that correct?
Correct. Part of my job is also when the deliveries happen to go there, make sure that they got what they needed, make sure the guys that are installing the product know what's going on. It's not just a, hey, thanks for the order, see you next time. It's, did everything come in? Did you get what you needed? Did the I's get dotted? Did T's get crossed? Is the township happy that, this is the right fire rating? Is this, is the township happy you got the sound ratings you need? Is everything there to get your project done?
Right.
Because I'm in construction, it's heads and beds. It's a generic term. Is the building's built, people have moved in, you've now gone from a construction loan to a holding the property loan, and you're actually getting money in now So your cash flow is now positive instead of negative.
Yeah.
Trying to get that done as fast as possible is important, and that's a coordination of with the design team, with the GC, with the people installing it, with the people that are working with my product, is to make sure they know what works, what doesn't work, how to coordinate, and how to put everything together. And just make sure things are done right and be there for the customer and answer the questions that need to be done.
Let's talk about your sales funnel a little bit. In a down economy when things happen, is your approach to try and cast a wider net? Or is it to bring it back in, see where you can find some more quick wins with existing customers and increase those sales? They already know you, they already like you, you've got the relationship, you've got the trust, expertise, and authority with them, right? So can you expand those? Or are you looking to broaden your net and see if there's any other opportunities that, maybe traditionally you wouldn't look for?
So almost in a down market, you almost go to the default of the broaden. So like I've done more of those the trade shows, and I've done some more of the little events. Worked harder in certain aspects that I've kind of, when everything was booming, I didn't have time to do because there was so many projects. You were just kind of bidding on, finalizing contracts, going out to job sites, doing all the other stuff that you need to do for the consultative process. Now it's more the front end stuff. So yes, it's trying to go broader and deeper in the organizations and in your marketplace. So like for me, one of the big things is I spent a good portion of the last 7 months, 8 months, really trying to develop a good union installer in Philadelphia specifically. Because some of my customers were like, yeah, I'd love to use the product, but I can't get the numbers to work because I don't have a good union installer. So that's a very specific thing in a very specific market that
Gotcha.
I had other guys that were doing great work. I had enough business in the other word, and I just didn't have the time to track down the business agents, go and do training at their training centers, go and meet with, a 2 dozen of them before I distilled down to the 2 guys that actually wanted to work with me, and then spend time with them training their guys because I had a little more time because I wasn't stretched in other areas. So yeah, so it's much more, you want to broaden and deepen and you do go after those things that you've like, oh, I need to do this. And you just don't get to. Again, that's working the plan.
Yeah.
So when things are going crazy and you're running around and you're putting in a lot of hours, but it's just like, okay, I'm getting the quick hits. I'm getting, this developer is doing 3 projects a year. Now he's only doing 1 every other year. Okay, well, I'm not spending as much time with that guy because I'm not at his job site, 3 days a week or whatever it is. And you have other guys that are sitting that survive the 25. They're in holding mode. So you try to go in, you try to do training with the architects you already know to get the other architects in the firm understandable. You do training with the structural engineers. We always have updates to our product. It's like, okay, our tables are new for ACI and Steel Structural Institute. Our fire ratings changed. We learned this on this project. How do we pass that along to other people? Develop your relationships with other subs and just yes, all of the above, but it's more broaden and deepen with your existing customers in your base.
So deepening is really now going back and increasing your trust, expertise, and authority through education and making sure that as it turns up, nobody's going to be moving in on your potential sale.
It's also making sure that the firms, like I have one engineer I've known for a long time. And he goes, oh, yeah, we're going to use you, but we're doing a lot of these types of buildings. And I'm like, well, I can do that, right? And he goes, what do you mean? I didn't know you had that. I'm like, yes. So had to go back and sit with him and his people and go through and say, this is how we achieve that. This is what you have to look out for, but we can do it. And he goes, oh, okay. Because I have 2 other firms that use me all the time for that product, and he never did. And I couldn't figure out why. But because he was a little bit slower, I was able to get his attention on it and do the training and bring him up to speed. So now it's like, okay, when the pops up, now I have something else that he's going to think of me as.
That's interesting.
Interesting. So, what's the most effective marketing strategy that you've seen work in your industry?
From a marketing strategy to generate sales, the most effective is getting the code to set you as the standard. What I mean by that is there was a very specific product that I don't haven't competed against, but I have to integrate with, and it was because all the guy that invented it and then his daughter who was working with him did. They went to every like major code office and got themselves inserted in the code as the standard, and everybody just defaulted to ordering that to meet that standard. And it was the most brilliant piece of marketing that I can think of. The most brilliant construction sales thing I can think of is I want to know who the guy was that sold the first noise wall along a highway. That was the
Yeah.
guy that now all of a sudden everybody's got to put up these stupid walls along the highway. And it's like, what does it really do? And who thought, let's spend all that money on doing that? And whoever that guy is, freaking brilliant.
Had to be an engineer, right? Somebody that,
He convinced some engineer somewhere
yeah,
that it made more sense, and then a township or state official said, "Oh, it's going to reduce noise." It doesn't really reduce
yeah,
noise; it just reduces noise for the 10 feet on either side of the wall.
yes. Well,
But
that
everybody puts them up.
is so true. And that brings up, a great point. I mean, both examples, what I heard was be the thought leader, right? Be the thing, however you go about doing that, make sure that you're the one that people listen to and that they trust. You're seen as the expert, the authority, and that greatly enhances your sales. Is that correct?
Correct. And it doesn't, even if you're a wham bam, thank you, ma'am sales, if you can if you let people know I can answer all your questions and you know what's going on, that's the important thing. It's in my career, I'm now fortunate enough, I'm becoming more into the mentor role. Telling younger people, salespeople is, all right, you have to know your product and you have to know where it fits. And you have to be able to answer those questions at a minimum. Don't bullshit people. If you don't know, don't just say, I don't know. Let me go find that answer for you. And then go find somebody that knows the answer, whether it's an engineer, a senior person, or a code official, and get the answer and bring it back to them. You can develop more trust by telling somebody, I don't know, and go find out and get them the right answer, than by telling them something and they're going to sniff it out pretty quickly that you don't know what you're talking about.
Sure.
So that's my big piece of advice to younger salespeople. Know what you don't know, admit it, and then find out the right answer, and then don't have to ask it again 3 or 4 times. Just learn the response.
It's excellent advice. Thank you. Get your crystal ball out. Okay, we're saying survive to 2025. That's a few months away. That's under the assumption that in 2025 things are going to get better, and that the economy is going to get better, and we're just now, kind of back into rolling. But here we are again. We're going back to what we said earlier in the show. We're still talking about coming out of COVID. So 2025, kind of, what's your vision for 2025, 2026, the next couple of years? How do you see the markets going? What do you think is going to happen in your industry?
So I'm fortunate in the industry portion that I'm in construction. A lot of multifamily, some lab spaces, office spaces, even self storage. Those are kind of like the main niche markets that I kind of play with. Assisted living facilities, that kind of thing. Philly through New York, extended metro down into DC. There's always going to be need for that, and there's always going to be turnover. We're still short housing. What's happening is some of the things that are slowing down the process coming out of COVID. New Jersey and Philadelphia are starting to actually, everybody's going back to work. You're starting to see more and more people in the office, and that's from a government standpoint for approvals and getting your permits and all that kind of thing. also to the professionals, your architects, your engineers, and even your developers. People are in the office, which speeds up the process, because before COVID, you would have a meeting and every 6 people would get around the table and you'd be able to ask the questions. And yeah, there was some work from home, but it wasn't like it is now. Once COVID hit, you had everybody working from home. So what used to be Monte, you have a question. You turn around, hey, Doug, do you know how to do this? Yeah, this is how you do it.
Mhm.
Now it's an email chain that takes 4 days.
Yeah.
Because you send me an email, I get back to you the next day with a question. Then it's like an answer question. And it takes a couple of hours because you're doing something else and I'm doing something else. And then, gosh forbid, we need to pull in somebody else. Like, we're engineers and we need to talk to the architect or the developer. What should have been a 3-minute conversation because we were in the office is now a week-long back and forth. With everybody going back in the office, is just going to speed certain things up. I have developers there were not board meetings for townships because quorum wasn't met all through it, and it was catching up. So approvals that used to take 4 to 6 weeks were taking 6 to 8 months, and that's just pushing projects back. And then projects got pushed back. Funding was becoming a little more problematic. Interest rates went up, and it's like everybody's like, okay, this project doesn't pencil out anymore. So now we need to go back to the drawing board. As soon as you go back to the drawing board, then that whole process has to restart. So with people going back in the office, hopefully interest rates coming down, because starting back in February of 24, it was like, if we just got a quarter point, it would break the logjam. 2 quarter points would make everybody a lot more comfortable. And unfortunately, the past couple of days, and for those of you who don't know, as you're listening to this podcast, today is August 6th. August 5th was a brutal day for the market.
Yes.
They're now talking about, half a point, maybe an emergency. We don't know. But if you start getting 2 quarter points here by the end of the year, it's going to loosen things up. We alluded to it's an election year.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter which side of the ballot box you're going to be. Wall Street and banks hate not knowing.
Yeah.
So if they don't know what the environmental environment is, and they're not going to know until November 8th or 10th or whatever it is, once everything gets counted up, they're going to be a little more hesitant. And the regulatory environment, whichever way it goes, they just want to know what it is. They can deal with it either way. Now, obviously, certain people have a preference for one way versus the other, and
Sure.
there are certain people that are like less regulatory and more, business friendly than others. But once it's known, then people will be able to adjust, plan, and act accordingly. So that's a drag right now as well. To your question, the crystal ball, once we get through a dip, an interest rate reduction or two, and we get through November, whichever way it goes, there's going to be, okay, now we can really start going. I have a number of projects that are, as I said earlier, okay, we're going to try to get this wrapped up, but we're late first quarter, second quarter, 2025. There's a lot of other ones that are like, they're just waiting. Banks and financing are a major issue with this.
Yeah.
Also, oddly enough, insurance companies have really thrown a monkey wrench into things.
Yes.
In my world, everything's got to be insured. So there's the insurance on the loan, there's the insurance on the workers, the insurance on the material, there's the insurance on, does the stuff actually work? Is it going to be installed properly? Everything that goes into it, and insurance companies just keep jacking the rates. If we can get through a hurricane season, again, it's August 6th and Debbie is coming up through the South. If we can get through a hurricane season without billions of dollars of damage, hopefully insurance won't go up next year, which will make numbers be able to pencil out. All that goes into the world of construction. And all that goes into what gets built, what doesn't get built, how it gets built. And it's all part of it. But 2025 should be better. Is it going to be 2022? I had a great year in the middle of COVID because everybody was building everywhere all at once. Hopefully, prices are starting to come down a little bit with the cost of steel and some of the other materials. So if we can get a good a good regulatory environment, bring interest rates down a little bit, hopefully get insurance to settle down instead of giving surprises to the developers, and absorption of a number of the units that were already in the pipeline, it should be good. Is it going to be a banner year? I don't think 25 is going to be a banner year, but I think 26 is going to shape up to be a really good moving forward as everything shakes out and everybody understands where they are.
Well, this has been really insightful, Doug. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing these insights with the audience. If you've been listening, I really hope that you have gleaned some really powerful tips from Doug. Help yourself in your own sales process, understanding the economy, and take some tips from Doug in terms of your mindset and making sure that you keep working your plan, stay with it. I totally agree with you, Doug, that sales tends to be cyclical, that you're going to have these ups and down times, but stick with it. What goes down must come up, and vice versa. Thanks for joining me today, Doug. I really appreciate your insights and all that you've delivered today.
Thanks for the invite, Monte. Appreciate it.
You bet.